Listen to the Vibes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. And I'm very happy to welcome Ray Hartjen here, who is a writer and a cancer patient advocate. So let's get to know him and have a great conversation. Ray, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Hey, Kyle, thank you so much for having me on the Vibes. I appreciate it. And it's great to chat with you and your audience. As you said, I'm a musician and a writer. I live in the Bay Area. And, I'm currently out speaking to folks about a book that I've written called Me, Myself, and My Multiple Myeloma, because I wanted to provide a resource for cancer patients, patient caregivers, and their allies, right? And so I was diagnosed with multiple myeloma in March of 2019. For those of you who aren't aware of multiple myeloma, it's a relatively rare blood cancer, not quite as rare as I would want it to be personally. I wouldn't mind having one less patient. It's an incurable cancer, but it's a treatable cancer. And, being diagnosed with cancer, there's a lot of, I hate to use the word baggage, but I guess it is. There's a load that I carried with me, at least initially, when I woke up in the morning, it seemed like cancer was the first thing I thought about. The last thing I thought about when I went to bed at night was usually cancer. And then I thought about cancer a lot in between the day too. And, over time, in a short period of time, it really weighed on me mentally. I mean, I was exhausted physically because of the mental and emotional toll, a cancer diagnosis was taken on me, had taken on me. And, there's I think a tendency within, the cancer community. We talk a lot about it in group sessions, that cancer takes away. What is it taken away from your life? And cancer does take some things away. It changes your life. There's a new normal. But for me, the message I want to come out there is that cancer has gifted me a lot. It's added a lot to my life. That's, one of the things I like to talk about. One of the impetuses for writing the book is, helping cancer patients, very specifically multiple myeloma patient, but any cancer patient, or for that matter, any patient that's facing a serious chronic health issue, that there's certainly negatives, obviously, but there's also an awful lot of positives that I think that has made me at least more complete, made what I do more rewarding, giving me a greater sense of inner peace.
So what all does the treatment involve?
It's different for different folks. There's the multiple part of multiple myeloma, but initially, pretty much everybody goes through what's called induction therapy. And that's a couple of different immunotherapy, chemotherapy medications, along with a battery of steroids and antivirals and things like that. And the idea is to try to help your body beat down the level of cancer in your body. Leading up to, most people get a stem cell transplant. And the stem cell transplant sounds all high-techy. It's like, wow, stem cells, it's what's that all about? It's a bit of a marketing gimmick, I think. What's stem cell? It's not like, some people getting stem cell therapy in a joint where, the injection of stem cells to help stimulate, a growth of maybe new knee cartilage or something like that. In a stem cell transplant, mine was an autologous stem cell transplant, so they used my own stem cells. It was a massive chemotherapy dose just to shock my body. And first of all, it helps kill myeloma. And then it shocks your bone marrow and your stem cells going, what is going on here? Let's get out into the blood system and see what's going on. And so the stem cells flood into the blood system, cruise around, and after that initial dose of chemotherapy, it's a lot of human or like a lot of growth factor injections. For me, it was a Neupogen, until enough stem cells come available in your blood to then get skimmed off in a process much like dialysis. It's called apheresis. At that point in time, my stem cells were frozen, and it gave me a couple of weeks of rest and relaxation and let my body recover. Then it was a couple of major doses of chemotherapy, things that weren't fun to go through at all. The aim there was to kill as much myeloma that was residing in my bone marrow as possible. And the collateral damage was my bone marrow. So not only does it kill off myeloma, it kills off all your bone marrow. And of course, bone marrow helps you It makes red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets. It has your entire immune system, the antibodies that you built up, that memory in the bone marrow. So the bone marrow gets wiped through with a couple of massive chemotherapy doses. That's when they give you your stem cells back. So they come in, they find these brand new homes, these hollow bones with no bone marrow. They go, boys, let's get to work. Let's make bone marrow first, and then we can start making platelets, red blood cells, white blood cells. So that was the idea of beating down the myeloma cells to as few as possible, and then the stem cells, help you go back and get back onto to maintenance treatment, which is these much like the induction therapy, a resumption of a pill and an injection, chemotherapy, immunotherapy.
And how did you find out?
One of the things I like to tell people, I had the opportunity and the pleasure to, participate in a lot of videos and a lot of interviews after my diagnosis, and people would see me online, and they would reach out to me through social channels. They were newly diagnosed or what have you, and wanted to hear more. And so that's the reason I wrote the book was, how can I take these conversations, so one-to-one conversations that turn into one-to-many? How can I help as many people as possible? And I don't want to be self-serving about it. So I'm donating all the proceeds, the net writers proceeds, to the Multiple Myeloma Research Foundation. And one of the messages I like to tell people is that you got to go see your doctor. Number one, go see your doctor. I was 54 years old. I'm a road cyclist, and my performance metrics on the bicycle were every bit as good as they were for the previous 5 years. But through a routine blood test, it was discovered that I had a low red blood cell count. I was anemic. And there's, what's the reason for your anemia? So we went through a process of, deeper and deeper blood tests to try to find out what the cause of my anemia was. And it resulted eventually in a bone marrow biopsy that showed that 90% of my bone marrow was cancerous. And I didn't feel a thing. The bone marrow biopsy, I certainly felt that. But looking back, maybe I was a little fatigued. But geez, I was 54 years old, full-time job, a wife and 2 kids in private universities. I kind of figured I had deserved, I'd earned the right to be fatigued, right, Kyle?
Right.
A message is go see your doctor. You don't need to be necessarily feeling pain, discomfort, fatigue, and things like that. Cancer, in many cases, a lot of diseases are silent, right? Go see your doctor. There's really no excuse not to. Get a full blood workup. A lot of things can be told from that. And the early starts, the better. Even though I had 90% of my bone marrow was cancerous, my bones were intact. A lot of multiple myeloma patients discover their multiple myeloma because they suffer these unexplainable bone fractures. A lot of them are people just getting up in the morning, taking a couple of steps and suffering compression fractures of the vertebrae. The doctor's like, well, that's weird. That shouldn't happen. Let's dig in a little deeper. That's because the myeloma has gone from the bone marrow, seeped into the bone, weakened the bone, and they suffer the fracture. For me, even though it was 90% of my bone marrow was cancerous, I could still consider myself having caught it early. It's better to catch it earlier rather than later.
Yeah. Kind of going through something like that. I had went and got one of my regular blood tests because I'm diabetic, and they had mentioned I was anemic, but I had a colonoscopy a few years ago, and they found some cysts and that kind of thing. They didn't seem to be concerned at the time. And then I have problems with my spine, and they were doing the x-rays like from my chest on down, and they found spots on my lung. So I'm going back for more tests. So fingers crossed, me.
Hey, yeah, good luck. Good luck on that. Fingers crossed, definitely, Kyle. But you're definitely doing the right thing. Follow up with your doctors, and take care of yourself and invest in yourself. A lot of people don't like to go to the doctor. I don't like going to the doctor, but it is an investment in yourself. And what are you willing to invest in if you're not willing to invest an hour in yourself, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Well, as a supervisor, my guys would get a little cut or something, and I'd tell them, hey, I don't care how small the cut is, go take care of it now. Because I'd gotten a real small cut on my hand, and macho guy, I don't need to go get get it cleaned up and bandaged and all that stuff, and went home that night and woke up in the middle of the night feverish. My hand had swollen up about 2 times, and went to the emergency room, and they found fragments all up in my hand, which was causing an infection. Little bitty tiny cut. Go to the doctor or go get it treated, something. But
Absolutely.
don't care how small it is.
Yeah. What's that old saying? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right?
Exactly.
Get it done early. Yeah.
Well, and I notice you're a musician. What kind of music do you play?
Yeah, I'm a musician. I'm a guitar player, a long time guitar player. I'm 59 years old now, getting close to 60. So, for me, as a kid, I was like first introduced to Elvis. I'm like, wow, Elvis is cool. I want to be Elvis. I'm like, man, I don't know if I can be Elvis, but maybe I can be James Burton as guitar player, And so I picked up guitar and played that, and then late 70s, 80s came around, and that's when I was exposed to Eddie Van Halen. I'm like, holy cow, that's my new guitar hero right there. And like a lot of people, and so I'm a hair metal warrior from way back when. But like I said, getting up there in age, ain't nothing. I'm too old to be dragging around, Marshall half stack and starting a gig at 10 o'clock at night and, getting home at 2:30 in the morning or something like that. So about 10 years ago, me and another of the hair metal warriors from back in the day, we started up a 2-piece acoustic band. It's called the Chronic Padres. We call ourselves the Happy Hour House Band, because that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to be home in bed by 10 o'clock as opposed to starting a set at 10 o'clock. Being here in the Bay Area, California, we specialize in breweries and wineries. We take all those great songs that we liked to play 20, 30 years ago and just strip them down to acoustic. So in a way, it turns out to be like a 3-hour, MTV Unplugged episode. We have our own original music, but like a lot of people, we discover that when someone's sitting around in a beer garden, sipping on a couple of suds, they'd rather hear like a stripped down Bon Jovi song than a stripped down Chronic Padres song. So we play a lot of covers, and lately, maybe the last 5 years ago, we've integrated a lot of country music into our gigs, just because, one, the ladies like them, and two, they're relatively easy to learn. So we can turn it around really quickly, and let's not kid ourselves. Every kid who picks up a guitar, many times picked it up just so they can impress the ladies, right? So so we got to pay attention to their desires.
Well, I looked at your Instagram. You had some great pictures in there. I see you took a picture like Sebastian Bach and
yeah. I had the pleasure of working with Sony Electronics for 14 years. I was a publicist, public relations guy. And so I got the opportunity to meet a lot of cool people. And I got a lot of opportunity to meet a lot of not so cool people either, right? Particularly in the music scene, there's, if you're not statuesque, woman, blonde, with a curvy figure, you might not be able to get their attention sometimes. But Sebastian Bach, he's one of the good guys. One of the really good guys, story I like to tell, Dave Grohl. I think everybody has what a cool guy Dave Grohl is type of story. But I was with Sony. We were sponsors at the Napa Valley Film Festival, and he was showing us his film there. And there's a big theater, maybe 1,000 people in the theater. And at some point in time, these 1,000 people were going to come out through the lobby. And Dave was there doing an interview, but I wanted to meet him. I'd had, many opportunities in the past at award shows and things like that, but I never wanted to meet him. I just want to say, dude, I'm a fan. I appreciate your stuff. And so, the director of the music or the film festival, came over to him and said, hey, Dave, before you run off to the airport and avoid this, massive crowd, I want you to meet Ray. And he goes, I totally want to meet Ray, but first I want to meet this guy. And he turns over and there's a kid that was standing there with his father, and he had a little poster. The kid was probably like 6, 7 years old. And Dave, with all this pressure that, potentially he might get trapped around 1,000 people, he knelt down on his knee and looked him right in the eye, got down to his level and just started talking to him. One musician to another, because the kid, I think, was playing drums or something like that. And it was the coolest thing to see this guy just connect at the base level with just this young kid who's now probably a Foo Fighters fan forever. The end of a long story is I got a chance to meet him, chat him up a little bit right afterwards. But it's fun to meet. There's that saying, be careful of meeting your heroes because they might not be the people that you kind of put them out to be. But there are some heroes out there that are really cool. And you mentioned one with Sebastian Bach. He's cool. And Dave, he's a lot of fun too.
Did you meet Alice Cooper? Because I saw you had a picture of him.
I briefly, I don't know if Alice would remember who I was, but that was at an awards show, and said hello, and he's kind and said hello back. Same show with Marilyn Manson. I remember walking to the restroom backstage, and Marilyn's a big guy, by the way, towering over me. I'm 6'1". He was way taller, and of course with platform shoes on, and he's kind of like looking down at me. I'm looking back up at him, and hey, Marilyn, how's it going? But Alice is a cool guy. Have you met Alice?
I haven't, but I would love to because he's one of my heroes from back in the day.
Yeah, he seems like a cool guy. I mean, if he show up, and do a bit spot on a Wayne's World movie,
We're not worthy.
Yeah, is this cool, Alice? And you gotta be a cool guy if you're willing to go in Wayne's World, right?
Right. Well, let's get back to your writing. Now, what else have you written?
The first book I wrote I was a co-author of a book called Immaculate: How the Steelers Saved Pittsburgh. And I see your state of Texas sign over there on over your shoulder. I'm a Texan too, and let me tell you, the 12-year-old Ray would be pretty disappointed that he wrote a book about the Pittsburgh Steelers. I born in Houston, and as a dutiful Texan at the time, born in 1964, Dallas Cowboys fan. And the Dallas Cowboys, very famously lost 2 Super Bowls to the Steelers. Having been born in Houston, my second favorite team was the Houston Oilers, and the Oilers just never could get through the Steelers to win the division title, and they lost 2 playoff games to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then my mama's favorite team was my third favorite team. My mama, just like everybody else's mama, liked Kenny Stabler of the Oakland Raiders. So the Raiders were her favorite team. So the Raiders were my third favorite team. And once they lost 3 playoff games to the Steelers in the 70s. So, growing up as a kid, the Steelers were gum on my shoes, right? I would have been enjoying a lot of successful fandom. But I had a friend of mine here in town. He is a Yinzer. He's from Pittsburgh. And, for 20 years, he's been tossing around this idea, this thesis in his mind that, Pittsburgh had a century and a half of prosperity. They produced some of the richest people in the world, and everybody was middle class, right? And it was built on, industry, steel. And, around 1975 so they really experienced a lot of hardship for about 10 years, a deindustrialization transformation. But at the end of this, they came out kind of smelling like a rose. Pittsburgh is all the time listed on these lists of most livable cities, right? They're world renowned for academics, technology, robotics, medical research, healthcare, and it's a great city. Yet, some of Pittsburgh's Rust Belt cousins like Detroit and Cleveland, Buffalo, they've kind of struggled and continue to struggle with this deindustrialization transformation. So Tom's thesis all along was, it was the Steelers that helped save the city. That, when the city was, facing its toughest time, they could look to a pretty improbable source. The Steelers have been horrible from 1933 to 1972. And all of a sudden they were good, but they were a team that was built in their image, hardworking, blue collar, bring your lunch pail to work type of football team. And when they needed their heroes, they could look there to have their heroes. But Tom's not a writer. Tom's he's a biotech executive. And, he would talk about this for decades, talk to his family, his friends, me for, all the time that I'd known him. And, one of the things that cancer taught me, gifted me was, soon upon my diagnosis, I guess I articulated in my head the perils of taking things for granted, taking time for granted, taking people for granted, taking relationships for granted. I mean, I was like a lot of humans. I took all tomorrows for granted, all next weeks, next months, next years, sometimes next decade. Someday I'm going to ... And as a musician who's always looking to sell a band T-shirt, I'm always on the lookout for some mottos to throw on the back of a shirt. It's like, that's a cool T-shirt. Let's get that T-shirt. Thank you very much. I can put food on my table. I developed this motto, or adopted this motto: if not now, when? Tom, if not now, when? If we don't write this book, when are we going to do it? Let's do it now. And let's get started. And if we should ever veer off of your vision with Immaculate, How the Steelers Saved Pittsburgh, we'll stop and get back onto your vision. It turned out we never stopped. We published it, and it's been a very well received book. So that's cool. And that's one of the things I like to talk about is the genesis of that book, the F not now when, and then the adoption of another motto that's also on the back of a band T-shirt, and that is punch today in the face. We're all given this gift of today, right? And let's use it up, man. Tomorrow's not promised for any of us. The rest of today is not promised for any of us. So what do I want to get accomplished today? What are the things that mean the most to me? The things, the deliverables I want to deliver, the people I want to meet. I care about you, Kyle. I want to reach out to Kyle. I don't want to think of Kyle and then go, you know what? I'm going to, I'll connect with him tomorrow. I'll send him a text tomorrow, whatever. No. I'm thinking about you now. I want to send a text to you now, and use today up, right? As the old saying goes, ride it hard, put it up wet. And then, laying in bed at night, you can roll over and you look at tomorrow and say, tomorrow I'm coming for you next. So adopting those mottos, they look good in the back of T-shirts, but it also helps me get things done. And it's helped me focus on that stuff that means the most to me. It's really easy to get caught up in the minutia of stuff. It's like, what do I want to accomplish? What do I want my legacy to be? How do I want to help people? Who do I want to speak with today? And who do I want to share with, to love, and to support? And, you do those things. For me, when I do those things that mean the most to me, at the end of the day, I feel a sense of accomplishment, well-being, and that sense of inner peace. It's like, today was a good day. Let's make tomorrow an even better one.
And
the vibes, baby. The vibes, right?
That's right. And you just like writing in general, then?
Yeah, I am a writer. Writing the books is the new thing. They're both. Anyone interested, both books are available wherever books are sold. Immaculate, How the Steelers Saved Pittsburgh, and Me, Myself, My Multiple Myeloma. But for years, I've written to put my kids through school, be it blog posts. Writing seems to come. I don't know, seems to come easy to me. I don't know if I'm good at it or not. I'll leave that to you all to decide. But writing about sports. I contribute to a lot of articles on the San Jose Sharks for Yahoo. Back in the day, I've written a lot about auto racing. In fact, working on a third book about the Indianapolis 500. That's something I enjoy doing.
I saw a funny video the other day where this lady had put down the New York Times bestseller list on her desk, and then was talking about how everyone seems to be on the New York Times bestseller list. So she threw the book on top of it. See, every book's on top of the New York.
I'm going to have to use that. I'll put a credit on it. I'm happy to announce that Immaculate, How the Steelers Saved Pittsburgh is now on the New York Times bestseller list. Literally on the list. So,
and do you have a website?
I do. It's my name, Ray Hartjen, RayHartjen.com. I like to post up blogs there, and you can buy books and just find out a little bit more about me. And then the various social channels. I don't know if it's a mistake or not, but I've created a lot of social channels for each book, as opposed to just using like my Instagram account for everything. There's an Instagram account for Immaculate Steelers. There's an Instagram account for My Multiple Myeloma. There's Facebook pages for both. But one of the cool things about writing books is establishing these communities, whether they're readers or not. But are you interested in the topic? And let's talk about that and build a community up around that. So that's fun.
Ray, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. It's been wonderful.
Kyle, I appreciate the opportunity, man. I love what you're doing, and I love the focusing on the vibes and the good vibes. There's so many shows out there that the nickname could be the Bad Vibes Network and stuff like that. Thank you so much for the opportunity to hang out with you and your crew here, and then thank you so much for doing what you do, and keep doing it, man. I hope our paths cross many times down the road.
Well, thank you so much. I also want to thank all you folks out there. If you are new to the channel, I hope you'll come back, hit that subscribe button for my regulars. You guys are awesome because you make it possible for me to do this. Until the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network